Boundaries. I quickly learned at 18 that I needed boundaries in the modeling business. I was constantly having new situations presented to me. And when I say presented, I mean weird, wacky situations that you could never have possibly prepared yourself for as you were growing up in a small town. I was also away from my family, which was my sounding board and my biggest fans for the first 18 years of my life. So, how did I survive these situations? Where did I learn what worked and what didn't work? I had to ask myself these questions and develop a strong sense of self awareness. I learned what made me happy and what to stay away from. Here are some of the steps I took.
So, as you know, I grew up here. I think back in the day, I don't know if young people feel this or not, but didn't you feel that there wasn't a lot of conflict? News was news, and that there, your friends, you didn't know if they were a political party? And I'm not sure if the young kids nowadays do, if all of our society has changed, or if it's just being young. But I felt like I didn't have a lot of conflict. There wasn't a lot of battles within as I was growing up. And at 17, I was discovered, and there's that whole story of how I got discovered in Buffalo in a modeling agency, and God knows why, because I had wet hair, and I was a tomboy, and I had no clue what I was doing. I had simple goals, though, when I was in high school. I remember all I wanted was, and I don't know if you guys were like this, stay out of trouble, get good grades, for me, fast swimming times, and go to college. And I kind of didn't think more than that. I remember my guidance counselor, she's like, what do you want to be? I'm like, I don't know. So you kind of have to figure out what your strengths were. And I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. Never made it.
I, like many of you, grew up in a small town. I kept busy in school with band, youth group, and kept my grades up and swimming. My life back then was based on my performance. When I got to New York at 18, I quickly learned that nobody cared that I was a straight A student or how fast my swim times were. It was all about my outward appearance, and this was something I didn't concentrate on when I was too busy swimming. So I had to quickly adjust. Here are some of the steps that I took. So I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and health food stores and fitness centers were pretty much non existent. We didn't ask questions about what we ate and what was in it, and we certainly didn't speak about how many miles we ran before work. Over time, our society has become much more aware of health and fitness. Gyms and health clubs are in every town, and labels on food tell us what is in or not in all of our food products. With all this awareness to health and access to gyms, there are still numerous diets and weight loss products out there. So, why, if we're more health conscious, do we spend so much money on weight loss products? We have the ability to work out, we have access to great food, and yet we're still spending a ton of money on weight loss products. So, let's dive into why. Modeling by nature can be a very exploitive business. This can be compounded by the fact that you're dealing with very young girls and guys, and they're desperate to become famous. So they somehow feel they need to do whatever it takes to get ahead. So, how can we prepare young people to succeed in this business without having to cross lines? The first thing I always tell them is to always have something else to fall back on, a college education, a different career path, something so that you're not boxed in and desperate to stay in this business. I also teach them to say no. It's important to know how to say no, and a lot of young people don't know how to say it. So, educating them on what to expect and how to handle situations is something I can talk about from experience. What happened to aging gracefully, and what does that term even mean? Graceful to me means letting things go and accepting things the way they are. So, do we want to age gracefully? Or do we want to find doctors, procedures, and skincare regimes that help us keep what we have or even improve it? So, I'm a firm believer that aging starts from the inside first. Eating as clean as possible, as well as guarding stress levels and getting a good night's sleep, seems like common sense, but they're important. If you think about it, this was what most of the Americans did 50 years ago. So the food was less tampered with, the stresses were less. But did they look younger? Did they live longer? So, what has changed and what can we do now to protect and even improve our aging bodies? There are numerous ways to go about this, and let's dive into some now.